I got my drink, got my Bitcoin inflation killer shirt. Let's talk crypto. To begin, I would like to say I think that we are at an end of an era. And this era that I'm referring to is the end of cheap coins. We've had about a year to accumulate coins very, very cheaply. And if you don't believe how cheap these coins were, let me just take a moment to just ground you in the price action of these coins being slaughtered. We had, I have my notes here, we had Bitcoin at 16,000. We had ETH under 1,000. We had Solana, $9. Solana now trades for about 100 and almost, 15. I think it hit a 52-week high of $125. We have Link that traded for $4 in the bear market. Link now is trading up upwards of 20 bucks, which is insane. So I think it's safe to say the era of cheap coins are over, even if momentarily. You know, cycles come and go, bear markets, bull markets, they flip. These things happen. But if we look at now, majority of the top leading tokens are up by as much as 200% minimum. Solana, like I said, is up 1,000%, which is ridiculous. And it could even, be bid up even higher. But there's one token that I really think could go a lot higher if market conditions allow. And when I say market conditions, let's get into what I mean by market conditions. As more and more money flows into Bitcoin, altcoins follow suit. Bitcoin is kind of like the de facto token to look at in terms of understanding how the market is performing. Right. Let's look at the bull cases for Bitcoin. There are a few bull cases for Bitcoin, which makes the bull case for altcoins even more bullish. So there are ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs, that are just essentially sucking up and accumulating as much as 9 times the daily issuance of Bitcoin. So essentially the amount of Bitcoin that is given into the miners, they are accumulating 9 times that. That's insane. So just take a moment to understand that every day there's a total amount of Bitcoin that's added into circulation to validators, aka miners, right? And these ETFs are accumulating upwards of 9 times the amount of daily issuance. That's incredibly bullish. And we also have businesses that are accumulating a ton of Bitcoin. The best case I can think of right now is MicroStrategy, MSTR. They currently hold 190,000 Bitcoin that I think is valued now at like 10 billion. Shout outs to Michael Saylor. That is, that's my GOAT, that's my legend. So the bull case from Bitcoin continues to grow, but I'm not done. We also have retail investors that we think will bid up Bitcoin as well, as they realize that Bitcoin is becoming scarcer and scarcer, whether it's governments purchasing, businesses purchasing, or whether it's ETFs purchasing, of course. It's becoming scarcer and scarcer, right? And on top of all of these bullish catalysts, we also have the halving. The halving is an event where the daily issuance of Bitcoin to miners will be cut in half. That means that this asset could become even scarcer. So I gotta take a sip for this one. So if ETFs were buying 9 times the daily issuance of Bitcoin, that means that once the halving happens, we'll have even less Bitcoin in circulation daily, going from 6.25 to 3.125, right? That means that, essentially it could be almost, ETFs could be purchasing, 18 times, 20 times, daily issuance as after the halving. That's incredibly bullish in my opinion. And we also have inflation, right? Inflation is making consumers and investors consider, where do I want to put my money to get the best yield, and also to ensure that, the government is going to print, more and more money, essentially devaluing my currency. And, for those of you watching in the States, inflation, we're feeling inflation right now, but it's not as terrible as it could be. If you look at a country like Venezuela, the currency there has essentially devalued so much that the currency is now worthless. They had to issue a new currency because inflation was so ridiculous that it devalued it almost to zero. Like artisans on the street, they use their currency to like make art. I believe over time that people are going to look for a better alternative than their paper currency, because essentially their governments have failed them. And crypto is going to be one of the great cases for this demand. And if you look at countries like El Salvador, if you look and see what El Salvador is doing, they're really big on Bitcoin. The president there, the dictator there, recently made a huge bet on Bitcoin that's now profitable, and he's essentially lifting his people, his country, his citizens out of poverty by just betting on crypto. That and the big bet on crypto is that there's only 21 million coins. You can't have a Fed or a government go and print, I don't know, like a billion more tokens. It's only 21 million coins. To put that in perspective, MicroStrategy holds 190,000 of these tokens. I think that's almost like 1% or 0.1% of the entire circulation. This is a very scarce asset that will, in my opinion, grow scarcer over time, which is why I have my inflation killer shirt here, because I really feel like Bitcoin is that solution for inflation. So in terms of looking at the macro and crypto, if Bitcoin soars, altcoins typically follow, which makes a great case for this one token I think could really be bid up in the coming bull market. As this asset grows scarcer and businesses want in, governments want in, retail wants in, institutional investors want in, Bitcoin could experience, or will experience in my opinion, a supply shock. This supply shock could result in the price just soaring astronomically. We've seen estimations from Kathy Wood over at ARK Invest. She says she thinks it could hit 100,000. We've seen some other high-profile investors. They think it could hit 250K. And really, those estimations aren't crazy in my mind. If you just consider that without institutional investors, without world governments really being involved in the last bull market, Bitcoin hit 68,000 with just retail and, perhaps some governments and some businesses holding it, but it wasn't like incredibly mainstream. Now you can invest in Bitcoin very easily from, with an ETF. You can hold GBTC. So it's a lot more, there are more ways now to invest in Bitcoin. But we didn't see that last cycle, and it still touched 68,000. With all of this FOMO and euphoria and scarcity surrounding Bitcoin, we could really see Bitcoin cross $100,000, $250,000. Some even predict $1 million. Who knows? But I'll tell you what, I'll take a sip to that. Should this rally continue, one token that in some cases I would say some people would say it's a risky investment, Solana, has been bid up from $9 to about $125 in the last 52 weeks. That's its 52-week high. I think Solana could really go higher. If you're on CT, crypto Twitter, if you've been following what's going on, you kind of understand the narrative of Solana. Solana is known as the Ethereum killer because it's a layer 1, it's scalable, it's quick, it's fast, it offers smart contract capabilities similar to Ethereum, but it's quicker and cheaper. If you've invested in crypto, you know that gas fees can be ridiculous. I paid as much as $100 for a gas fee during the bull market when I was investing in meme coins, and I really wanted to just capture a gain, a pretty sizable gain. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll just pay the $100. I don't see retail saying like, hey, let me pay $100 for this transaction. Right. And mind you, that can be 3 transactions. Say for instance, if you want to add a token to MetaMask, that is one transaction. And then to actually swap, that's another transaction. And then to, if whenever you want to get out of that trade, or if you wanted to send it to like a ledger or something, that's another transaction. That's 3 transactions. Let's say on the average of those transactions cost $30, which in the bear market, we saw ETH gas fees at $30. In the bull market, it can be anywhere from 100 to 60 to 100 to upwards of 200 if it's peak euphoria. Retail does not want to spend $200, or anyone wants to spend $200 to validate a transaction or to facilitate a transaction. That's just not attractive to retail. So I do think there's huge opportunity for Solana to be bid up in this coming bull market. Its last all-time high was about 320, 350, I believe. I think that Solana, given some of the catalysts that are ahead of Solana in terms of the adoption it's seeing, the volume increasing on the chain, what else? TVL growing. I mean, they have DeFi that's budding up. I mean, their TVL isn't comparable to Ethereum's chain, which means, total value lock, how much DeFi sort of transactions are happening on the chain. It's not as sizable as Ethereum, but over time it's going to grow. I think it's going to grow. I think Solana is one of those chains that is going to really have a lot of adoption. That said, I will say that the next Ethereum upgrade plans to target some of the shortcomings of the Ethereum blockchain, for instance, with the gas fees, making it more scalable. So these things are being addressed by Vitalik, but I think where Solana currently stands in the market, the adoption is seeing increased volume, increased revenue. Increased volume, increased wallets, TVL growing on the chain, and just euphoria growing. You know, they've sold now over 100,000 Saga phones, which is Solana's phone that has, like, you know, access to its ecosystem. And I think early adopters of the Saga phone also received airdrops that were comparable or more valuable than the actual purchase of the phone. So like the airdrops exceeded the purchase that they made. So they made a $450 purchase or $250, whatever the price was. The airdrop was like, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times more than the actual value of the phone. Crazy. So there's a lot of adoption growing on Solana, and I think, you know, that team really understands what they're doing in terms of adopting in terms of growing adoption of Solana. And I think that Solana's in a great position to really benefit from what's unfolding as, you know, investors come into the market, as institutional investors say, okay, other than Bitcoin, Ethereum, and, you know, stable coins, what else can I hold? I think Solana is going to be prime to be bid up. If you enjoyed this video or, you know, learned anything, feel free to check out the Substack. I have that in the description below. The Substack, which is a newsletter, goes into this entire argument about, you know, Solana being bid up in much greater detail. I think there are, you know, greater times ahead of Solana. I think conservatively we can see, you know, $400 Solana, $500 Solana. You know, if I were to be very liberal in my estimation, we could potentially see $1,000 Solana. Should we see $1,000 Solana, that'll represent about a 10x from here. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, cheers to future gains, and please subscribe, hit the like button, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.